Now joining me for a chat this evening is my good friend, Dr. Pradeep Chadha, who's a consultant psychiatrist in Dublin. He works both in the private practice and obviously, of course, the part of the NHS as well. Huge experience, and obviously as well, thinks outside the box when it comes to looking at the different reasons why people have mental or emotional health issues. So, Pradeep, thank you very much for joining this evening. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. One correction I would like to make, Michael. I'm not working with HSC at the moment.
Sorry.
I'm totally in private practice.
Oh, you're totally. My apologies. I thought you were doing some stuff at HSC as well. Yeah. So
I was doing it at some stage, but then that was, again, it's good to go back to HSC once in a while to see what changes have been there.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't find any. The experience is good, but there's hardly anything new to learn.
Yes.
And that's a pity.
It is a pity because, I was just saying to you before we kind of started the official chat that particularly now I see so many people, with anxiety or their anxiety symptoms seem to be exacerbated hugely, Pradeep. And I know you see that all the time in your private practice, but it's like what you were saying, probably this was just another layer of stuff that came on that they were already maybe anxious. That's the kind of point you were making, was it?
Yeah. One of the things that people don't realize, actually, they make their life busy. And one of the very interesting things that I find in our culture, in Western culture, is that we lay a lot of emphasis on holidaying and vacations.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I came many years ago, I was quite astounded. I come from a different culture.
Yes.
So where holidays and vacations, probably because of historical facts and economical reasons, holidays and vacations have not been a part of lifestyle. So when I came here, and I think I heard Jerry, what was the name, the man who died?
Jerry Ryan?
The broadcaster.
Jerry Ryan, yeah.
Jerry Ryan.
Jerry Ryan, yes.
Thank you. I heard him say in one of the radio programs, we live for holidays.
Yes.
So when I came here, I can understand how people live for holidays because their life is so busy. But the interesting thing is that their life, firstly, is busy, and secondly, they make it busy.
Mm-hmm.
They make it busy, so they're on the go all the time. So from morning till night, they are doing something, and then at nighttime, they go into bed and fall asleep and wake up in the morning and they do the same thing again. It can be called as demands of time, or it can be stated that people have deliberately made their lifestyles. It's controversial, but whatever it is, lifestyle is busy. But what happens in such busy lifestyle is that people do not get a chance to look at themselves, to look at where their life is going, to look at the emotional issues that they encounter on a day-to-day basis. They put them under the carpet, believing that they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in times like COVID, you are confined to a room or a house and you cannot go out. And if you have never looked at yourself or your life before that, all hell will break loose.
Mm-hmm.
Because all your tensions that you have held on to, they will come to the surface and you will have to look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't run away anywhere.
Mm.
You are confined to the four walls. And the best you can do is, if you have a lawn, if you're lucky to have a lawn at the back or in front of your house, you can go there and take some deep breaths. But if you're confined in an apartment, then you're going to face problems. So,
but based on that, I mean, we had seen, just on exactly what you're saying, we had seen the increase in domestic violence and separations around that.
Exactly. Now, as far as domestic violence is concerned, again, it's related, because people hold on to their anger and their annoyance and their fears, and when they are confined in spaces, all that comes up.
Mhm.
And just to bring another point, um, which is interesting, when people become monks in various faiths, one of the things that the monks, the novice monks are taught is meditation. And what does meditation do? It puts a person, makes a person look at themselves, their inner self.
Mhm.
And one of the results of looking at the inner self is to look at those anxieties and those tensions and those fears that they carry, all of them carry.
Mhm.
So when you're confined to a space, a small space, then you the same thing happens. You are supposed to be meditating. You are supposed to be looking at yourself. And then your emotions start to come up. And where there are differences of opinion, where there are people who don't get along with each other, then they go to each other's throats
Of
and
course.
you have domestic violence.
And the thing is that, you know, uh, when you made a very valid point, earlier, that people make themselves busy because they don't want to look at themselves and they don't want to look at their lives, and certain circumstances are created where they are looking at them. And but society is ill-equipped, because on top of that, we had the state who expected parents to become teachers suddenly. There
Mm.
was the added pressure of becoming a teacher. There was the added pressure of becoming the creche. There was the added pressure of trying to, keep your kids happy, and yet deal with all the sort of insecurity and I suppose, the lack of proper knowledge around what was going on. But that changed the whole family dynamic, didn't it? Surely.
Certainly, because once again, when children go to creche, for example, um, the creches look after them. The parents are busy in their jobs. But now, when they're confined to a space, the children are not going to the creche, yet the parents are expected to work. So the stress actually mounts. It's a
Yes.
challenge. It's a challenge. But as I have a book here from Ernest Rossi, he says that when you convert a stressful situation into a challenge, your stress hormones actually go down. But what happens is that because of this new demand, people tend to take it as something other than a challenge.
Yes.
And then it becomes a problem. Then the stress actually increases.
Hmm.
And when the stress increases, there are two conditions in which your anxiety will come up. Your inherent held on anxiety will come up. Either when you are relaxing or when additional stress is put on you.
Mm.
Now you have a confined space, and on one side, external stimulation is gone, but on the other side, the internal stress has actually increased because demands have increased.
And
You now have,
people are not equipped to deal with that. They're not. Is that the whole focus? Is, that maybe in the past people were, but isn't now? Do you think, Pradeep, that there's need, like, for people like yourself and myself and whatever, to try and bring a new understanding, a new language to people, and to change that kind of model of life or living? Isn't that really what has to be done?
sorry, you broke off, Michael. I couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah, I was saying that it's time, I suppose, to bring a new language to the family environment to help them to deal with the stress. And I like what you say about taking the stress and just making it a challenge, and we can see the physiological change. But they're not given that knowledge. They're not given those skills or tools or techniques like you would teach patients in your practice, for example. You know.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. So people who have been looking at themselves, people who have been reflecting on themselves, people who spend time on themselves, within themselves on a regular basis. Interestingly, they did not face those problems. They did not have those anxieties or sense of depression. In actual fact, many of my clients who have been working with me, they felt that this was a very good period for them because it was time for them to just chill out and do nothing. because they were used to look at themselves. They were used to spending time within themselves. So the moral of the story basically is, yes, you can look at as something that has caused problems because people have been confined to spaces, limited spaces, and they are not able to move out, so anxiety comes up. But on the other hand, it makes you aware that if you would be doing this more regularly, then this anxiety, this depression would actually not be there.
Mm-hmm. That's very powerful because, and for sure, you know, some people do require medication. So initially maybe some people do require maybe maybe Xanax or something, or maybe what do you think of that? I mean, initially, do some people require some sort of sense of medical, sort of as in drug therapy, as well
Yeah,
as the cognitive stuff?
yeah, drugs do have a role, obviously. Drugs have a role. When things get out of control to the extent that a person cannot help themselves,
Yes.
then drugs come into play. Yeah,
Yeah.
drugs have a role. But drugs are not the only solution. That's the point.
Yes.
And let's put it very, very simply and bluntly. The current medical practice that we have, the current medical system that we have, is emergency medicine.
Emergency medicine.
It's best for emergency. It's best for COVID-like symptoms. Best for when virus strikes. What do? We make vaccine. We develop new drugs. It's an emergency kind of medicine. But what's the long-term issue? Immunity. You will see young people dying with COVID. You will see very old people surviving COVID. What's the reason? People who have better immunity, solid immunity, they are the ones who are surviving. And what causes that? Better immunity, less stress. So all these people, though there's no surveys done yet, but almost all people who have survived would be having less stressful experiences in life. And they would be less stressed out in life as well.
Yes.
Because stress also causes inflammation. So stress causes inflammation in the body. And these inflammatory responses are responsible for causing many other physical problems as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So stress is not only a mental issue, it's a physical issue. And then when violence comes up, when domestic violence takes place, then it becomes a behavioral issue.
Yes.
But all that happens when people ignore their own emotional and mental well-being. In my experience and view, I'm very strong about that all mental well-being is emotional well-being. Full stop.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
You don't have emotional well-being, you are mentally not being able to, you will not be able to function well. So, and emotional well-being requires constant and regular emotional cleansing. And emotional cleansing is nothing excepting working through daily tension on a day-to-day basis. And whether we acknowledge it or not, we are stimulated and bombarded by stimulations 24 hours a day, even when we are sleeping, when we are dreaming, for example. But when we are awake, our five senses are bringing a lot of information to our nervous system. And if we don't acknowledge that and do something about it, we take all that stimulation in our sleep.
Yes.
And if you add on days and weeks and months and we have not looked at ourselves, we are carrying an increasing distension on a daily basis till something like COVID happens and all hell breaks loose.
Or some other emotional traumatic.
Yes. Yeah. So anything, COVID is just an example.
Yes.
If it would not be COVID, if you would look at the lifestyles of these people individually, who have been suffering with anxiety with COVID, you will find out that even if there would not have been COVID, and had these people gone through or experienced something that would have confined them in that kind of setting, they would have still had anxiety because the event is just a trigger. But because COVID happened to a great population, to a very large population in a very short space of time, we hear of a lot of cases of anxiety and depression collectively.
Mhm.
But if you look at them individually, they would be very same cases who would have just required any kind of trigger to make them feel anxious or depressed. COVID was just something that was waiting to happen, and it happened.
Yes. And you know, we see,
So it's not a collective thing. It's not something that the whole population is suffering with anxiety or depression because COVID has brought it up.
yes,
If you look at it, it's a very personal thing. It's a very personal
it was already there.
individual experience. It was already there.
Sorry. And you know, we see a lot of children now. Are we just boxing children who are stressed, like you said? Are we boxing them into this, anxiety stage? And we hear things like social anxiety and all this kind of stuff. Are we just boxing children into certain boxes just to give it a label? Because we see, children are on the social media all the time. They're stressed, they're tired, their concentration, they're up all night, their behavior with their food is wrong. And some parents, that I've talked to personally, Pradeep, they're at their wits' end, as they would say to us, with regard to their children stressed out and, having lots of different types of emotional health issues.
Okay, I'm not an expert in children, but with whatever I have experienced and seen of children and life in general, children are full of energy. They are constantly on the go. One
Yeah.
of the biggest challenges for parents is to keep them busy. Now, if there is nothing else to do, they will go on and watch TV, or they will go on a screen and play games. But now this is not a COVID problem on its own.
Of
If you
course.
look at it,
Absolutely.
it's a generational problem that has happened with the arrival of all the screens that we have. Again, the principle of energy, if you work in energy field, but our body is producing energy. Children are full of energy.
Yeah.
And that energy has to be spent. That energy has to be let out.
Yeah.
So if you have a back garden, then playing with them will or can do that.
Yes.
But the problem arises when parents don't have time to do that because their job is such that they have to be in front of the screen from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock
Yeah.
in the evening. And the children have to be literally minded by themselves.
Yeah.
The best that the parents can do is ask them if they need food at any particular moment in time or if they are hungry. So the children are fending for themselves, and that's when the problem arises.
Yes.
So on one hand, you have children who cannot be kept busy, and on the other hand, that energy that's being spent, that's being produced, there's nowhere to be spent.
And what do you feel, Pradeep, is kind of what is important for, let's say anybody who who will look at this when we post it on social media or whatever. What do you think is the most important step that people need to take? Because we can talk about anxiety and depression all day long and what it might be, what it mightn't be. But like you say, if we have accumulated emotional experiences, stressful experiences, they're going to drain our energies, cause inflammation and all that. What do you find, are the best tools? I know that when my own mom passed away, some of the tools that you gave me to work with on a daily basis, the breathing in particular, I found absolutely very helpful. And of course, with my chat with you as well, it was really, really helpful. What do you think is sort of the simplest way that people need to go about their daily life dealing with that emotional stress or that mental tension that you talked about?
See, emotional stress will continue to mount if you do nothing about it. And the way to deal with emotional stress is to, if I put a very simple word, to erase it out of your system. And how do you erase it? Our inner body functions are determined and controlled by what is called as autonomic nervous system.
Yes.
And one part of the autonomic nervous system relaxes us, and the other part of the autonomic nervous system makes us fight or flee. Now, it is this part of the nervous system that continues to accumulate the tension on a minute to minute, day to day basis. And when too much tension gets accumulated, then at that stage, either it gets jammed and a person feels irritated and annoyed all the time, or if they try to relax, then their relaxation becomes, again, they feel the fear and the tension and the anxiety, and the anxiety actually becomes worse.
Yes.
Now, where does this tension come from? From continuous stimulation of through our five senses. So the best way to, in my view, in my experience, to work on your emotional tension on a regular basis, if you can't meditate, is to just close your eyes and look at the blankness with your eyes closed with no thoughts. The problem is it's easier said than done, because that's exactly the problem. When people are not in the habit of doing this work on a regular basis, then the moment they close their eyes, various thoughts and memories will come up, and that will keep their mind busy. And when that happens, they don't want to look at that, and they will open their eyes. But the best thing that can be done is just close your eyes and think of nothing, even for 2 minutes at a time. And if you do it 5 times a day, you have done meditation for 10 minutes. And if you ask a person to sit for 10 minutes doing nothing and do meditation for 10 minutes, it could be a tall order for them. Yes. But spending 2 minutes or even 1 minute, you can time it with your phone. You can put an alarm and make a 2-minute alarm or 1-minute alarm, but do it very regularly. Say if you're prepared to spend 1 minute, you can spend 1 minute each hour, for example.
Yeah.
And by the time the day is over, you have spent 8 minutes doing that.
Yes.
But that 1 minute or 2 minutes will break the cycle of increasing tension, more stress, increasing tension, more stress, increasing tension, more stress. And that will set the ball rolling for the nervous system to start settling down. And one of the best things that can be done for emotional tension release is express. Express yourself. Express yourself in any manner you can. And if there is no other manner you can find, write a journal. If you're lucky enough, if you have someone to talk to them honestly, and you need someone to listen to you, no matter what you want to say, without judgment or without prejudice. If you have someone, all the more good. If you don't have someone, write. Express yourself. If there is no one else around you, try to look for a social circle, a group of people like-minded who could be alone, but when you are together, you provide company to each other. And that's another way to do it. But express yourself. Expression is the key. But when we do meditation, even without expressing externally, the body is able to express itself, process the tension on a regular day-to-day basis, so that tension that mounts up to cause domestic problems doesn't happen. And when domestic issues happen, domestic violence happens, again, it's not COVID that is doing it. It is the individual's individual problems that they come with. In my experience, the need to become violent with your partner happens when you are carrying a lot of anger within you. And you have not, as I said before, expressed yourself. You have not processed your anger. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I can hear you. And you're making some very valid points.
I can hear you.
Yeah, the whole idea of processing. I mean, sometimes people feel that, like you say, if they express themselves, some through a journal, or if they talk to somebody, they have this kind of sense, well, sure, I'm weak, that in the past we were told, cop yourself on, get up and get on with it, you're a man, face the world. And I'm talking about men here because a lot of men have a lot of deep-seated anger or frustration or agitation or whatever going on in their lives, and it is causing huge, huge, huge amounts of problems for them. Causing, we broke there for a second, sorry. Maybe it's our internet, but we'll chat away. I was saying men in particular, they get a lot of frustration and agitation, and it's because they are men, and because we are men. I can speak from a man's point of view. Sometimes you get so frustrated and agitated, and if they want to express themselves, like you said, sometimes they see that as a weakness. Surely that people need to realize now that expressing how you feel takes more courage than it does to shut it down.
Again, it's a cultural thing.
Culture.
It's not a natural thing. The natural way of human life is to express yourself. It's a cultural thing.
Yes.
In all cultures, men are taught that they don't need to express themselves. But that's the reason why you have problems. If these people who would have expressed themselves means that they don't have that energy left to be violent towards anyone.
Yes.
But because that expression is not there, that energy is present to be violent towards others. So when someone just intrudes in your territory and does something that is unpleasant for you, you flare up. I give an example of, if a glass is full of water up to the brim,
yes,
and you flick it with a finger, then the water will spill over.
Yes.
Now, if that water is your emotions and your body is full of that tension, any small flick, anything that you dislike, anything that you are unconsciously reminded of that was unpleasant in the past, it will make you flare up and can make you feel that you need to undo the impact. So you become violent. On the other hand, if that glass would be empty, so all those emotional tensions are not there, or even if the emotional tensions are less than filled up to the brim, and you flick the glass, nothing will happen. Everything will be contained. Water will not spill out. And this is the way human body and mind works. So when you are full of tension, when you're full of anger, you have never expressed it. Expression means you need to have a relationship with someone who you can honestly say what you want to say. And if that relationship has never been there, especially during childhood, when the mother was not present or the father was not present, and you had no one to be able to speak to or express yourself, that tension mounts up. Now you feel that no one listens to you, no one approves of you, and the only way to express yourself is to be aggressive.
Yes.
And then arrives COVID. And then you have all these people confined to a space, and the glass is full and it's flicked, and they lose control. And now you have en masse a problem, a collective cultural problem has arisen. Domestic violence is there. Again, it boils down to the same principle, the same thing. It's individual and the individual experience and the individual's way of looking at things. That is the problem. COVID has nothing to do with COVID. Is just a trigger. Once again, if this person would have been confined to the space, to a limited space, these two or three people, the same thing would have happened, even if there was no COVID.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because the model of living that people were having, that they weren't really living. I often talked about this, and I would say to some people, do you have joy in your life?
Yeah.
People are busy full time, going every day, chasing happiness or what might give them happiness in the context of the material wealth, the perfect car and all of that kind of thing, the perfect house, perfect relationship, whatever. And, that yet, but when you sit down, what it costs to achieve that has in some way, it's difficult to say it, but in some way it's blocked off their ability to enjoy life. People have lost the art of living life. That's what I honestly think. What's your feeling on that?
You have hit the nail on the head, Michael. But it's very interesting. I'm actually surprised at some of the responses I get from people when joy, happiness is discussed. I have come across people who are suffering with grief, for example, of a family member, of loss of a family member.
Yes.
And I'm explaining to them and encouraging them to work with grief so that they can rid of this tension, this misery that they are in, and they can live their life properly. And they have refused. They have refused to do that. I have come across people.
Is there a reason why they've refused?
Because they don't want to let go of the memory of that person. Somehow they get the impression that if they will grieve, then they will let go of the memory of that person for whatever reason, which is actually not true. The truth is very different. But this is the way they decide to live.
Yes.
So again, it's what they have learned. This is their cultural thing.
Okay.
I've also come across people who have had history of physical illnesses and severe physical illnesses related to stress. They have come out of it. They are cured. And now the challenge for them is to change their lifestyle. And the change in lifestyle means you need to decide how you want to work, how much money is enough for you, and whether you are willing to forego certain promotions, certain raises in money. And they have preferred and made the choice that they would rather go on antidepressants. They would rather lead a busy life and go for more money as compared to having better health, less work, and more time with the family. It's a matter of choice. So you may think differently. I may think differently. We may discuss happiness, but what people are satisfied with and what they are happy with is again a very personal and individual thing.
Yes, and that's the biggest challenge for people because, if you take our young people, not necessarily our young people, I mean, we've seen the increase in purchasing of stuff on the internet, whether it's through Amazon or whatever. One time, people were a target market because they would go down the street and they would go into shops and whatever. But now people have their phones in front of them and their computers, and they're being bombarded continuously, being targeted continuously with this advertising to buy, putting pressure. And isn't really that mechanism is something that people also need to take control of, that they don't need to respond all the time by feeling, well, I need this or I need this. It's really back to what you're saying. What are you happy with in your own life? What's satisfying? What enjoyment can you bring into your own life?
Exactly.
It isn't about the material things that you have.
You've used a very pertinent word called need. Need. There's a difference between need and want.
Yes.
You may need something without which life will be difficult. Or you may need something which can make your life easy. But there's a difference between making life easy with the need or life easy with the want. COVID-19, what happens is that there's deficiency in oxygen supply in the body. So you give oxygen to the person who is suffering, because without the oxygen, the person is going to die.
Mhm.
It's a need or a want. It's a
Okay.
need. The person cannot live without it,
Yeah. So they need it.
right? Now, the other rule is wear a mask. According to Irish law, as I understand as per today, when you go shopping, you should be wearing a mask. I went for shopping about 2, 3 days ago. I was wearing a mask. Very few people were wearing a mask. And everyone else, most of the people, were not wearing a mask. Now, shall I wear a mask? Is it a need or a want?
Mhm.
If I want to live, if I feel I want to live and I want to make others live, I need to put this mask on. Because if I take 2, 3 precautions, I can save my life, I can save many other lives.
Mhm.
Now, for some people, no, I don't want to. For them, the mask is not a necessity.
Yeah.
The mask is not a need. It is simply a want. This is a classic example of how people can be confused between needs and wants.
Yes. Yes.
A need is about survival. A need is something that you need to have to be able to live life comfortably. You need to have sleep. It's not a want.
Yeah.
You need to have nutritious food. It's not a want. But to have fast food or to have nutritious food is a choice we have. So we need to eat healthy or we want to eat healthy. It's a choice we have.
Mhm.
How much we want to eat unhealthy is a choice we have. If we want, we can eat unhealthy, but we need to eat healthy. There's a difference.
And it's a little bit like what you're saying as well about people taking that minute every hour.
Yeah,
That that realistically in the modern day we need to take that minute. It must be
exactly.
more. It must be more than we want to take it, but we need to take it because if we don't take it, the implications,
Yes,
and the implications are not just to us, like what you're saying about the COVID-19 situation. The precautions you take are going to influence others. So if you take yourself, that if we take the moment every hour and we see the need to do that to
yeah,
stop the overflow of emotion, that it just doesn't benefit us, but it benefits the people around us and the people we're dealing with every day and our families. So the implications of that need, is very powerful, isn't it?
that's right. Now, coming to the point that you talked about shopping, once again, people shop more
Yes,
because unnecessarily, because they feel they want something.
yes,
The wants are a sign that they're insecure within themselves many times. The more insecure we are, the more we hoard, period, full stop. The less insecure we are, the more we can let go. And
mm,
that's why there is a lot of emphasis on letting go if you want to be happy.
okay,
So, when people are buying things that they don't need just because they want it, it is because of their own insecurities, because they want to hoard, because they want to feel better, they want to feel bigger than others, they want to feel smarter than others, and so on and so forth.
yes,
Now, the more emotional tension they have, the more their glass is full, the more insecure they will feel, and the more they will buy. It is
mhm,
not a coincidence that when people start to look at themselves, when they start to meditate, when they start to settle down, when they process their emotions, when they start to become more relaxed, when they start to reflect, their lives become simpler,
mhm.
their wants reduce, and they let go of what is unnecessary in their life. Practically, as far as physical commodities are concerned,
Mhm.
but Even letting go of the emotions is also possible,
Hmm.
and it happens spontaneously. So it boils down to the same thing once again.
Yes.
If you are emotionally healthy, if you are emotionally expressive, if
Yeah.
you are emotionally reflective, if you are emotionally stable, your needs, your wants will be less. Your needs will be the same anyway, but your wants will be less. And you will be more, your self esteem will become better. Not confidence, self esteem.
Excellent.
And with a raised self esteem comes more security within yourself, feeling more secure within yourself, less likely to be violent, less likely to be irritating and annoying for others, and more content within yourself. And if COVID strikes again, to heck with it, enjoy your seclusion
Yeah.
and your isolation because now you are stimulation free.
Yeah. I think that you've given sort of me and you've given people some great food for thought there, Pradeep. I think going back to that initial point you made was, taking that, I suppose that anxiety and that stress and relegating it to a challenge. The benefits of that are huge to the body. Taking that moment every hour, that need to do that can be very powerful emotionally. Looking at the difference between the needs and the wants, and as you say, the wants are only just are just filling you with that adrenaline, that happiness for that period of time, but it
That's
doesn't
right.
take away and it doesn't, help you to transform those internal sort of insecurities and negative emotions or experiences that you've stored in your body. And sure, there's definitely some very good, powerful tips there for people to take with them because right now, like you say, and certainly from what I see, and with the greatest of respect to the HSE and to the all of the medical doctors and the psychiatrists and the counselors and whatever the work that they're doing, for some reason or other, they're just really tipping at the iceberg. They're just really not getting into that in-depth, I suppose, reality for the individual. They're not getting into the space where, why it is they feel the way they feel. Rather, they're looking at the experience, rather than looking, like you said, well, we in this culture, we grieve different. We believe that grieving is important, and it is important. No one is saying it's not, but we believe that if we grieve all our lives, well, that's a respect to the person who has passed. But often, it's about learning to transform that and letting go of the person who has passed because they're still in your heart. The love still is there. It can be a very powerful way to look at things, can't it?
True. The very interesting thing about grief is, sorry, that as long as your grief is incomplete,
Yes.
you will feel sadness, you will feel like crying, you will feel you miss the person.
Yes.
But when your grief is over, the person is still not there, but your whole attitude changes.
Yes.
You feel the person is there anytime you close your eyes. You feel positive about that person. You feel positive about the experiences that you have had with that person. And you feel that the person is still here in
Mm,
my mind.
mm.
So the other person is physically not there, but the person is in my mind. And I cherish their memories forever. And this is the contrast between when you have grieved fully and when you have not grieved.
Hmm. Very powerful, very powerful. And any final advice you give to people, Pradeep, who, out there might be just struggling right now at the moment, and while we've talked with them about the need to, motivate themselves into taking that moment. But there are people out there probably right now who will watch this and who will be looking at this and they'll be lying in their bed, maybe sitting at home, taking medication, maybe have done for years. You know, there must be still hope for these people, do you think? Of course.
That's the word that you have used that I wanted to use, which is fine. They need to have hope. They must have hope. Because in my experience, over 30 years doing whatever I do,
Mm.
there's one thing that I've noticed that changes a person's life, which is hope.
Mm.
A person who has lost hope has lost everything. But no matter how hopeless the situation.
Mhm.
One glimmer of hope can change a person's life. That's one. The second point is that nothing is permanent.
Yes.
Everything is temporary. So if you are feeling low, it's temporary.
Yes.
If you are feeling anxious, it is temporary.
Mhm.
If you are feeling miserable, it is temporary.
Mhm.
And you need to work with yourself to find a way. Now, that's the onus is on you. You have to find a way, or you have to find someone who can show you the way to come out of this misery, to come out of this anxiety, to come out of this depression.
Yes.
But it is temporary. The problem arises when we consider our suffering to be permanent and we sink, and it makes us sink into a hole, and we can't get out of that hole because there is no hope. Hope is there for everyone, no matter how hopeless a person is.
Yeah. I often say I wrote this sign one time and I said, hope is the lifeline by which many overcome their most difficult of circumstances. It's
Exactly,
actually a lifeline, you know.
exactly.
And I think that's the message that needs to go out there, that if you take that moment, if you can shift the stress to the challenge, if you can, you know, realize that hope does exist, and to realize there are people out there who can in some way create that strategy for you. It's like what you and I do. I mean, if I have a client that is struggling, I'll tell them to go and see yourself or whatever, you know, and vice versa. But the whole point of it is that it's about having that teamwork, knowing that there are people and certain therapies that can bring that hope into action, that can help people to overcome their problems. Isn't that important? You know, to bring the hope into action. It's to express yourself to somebody you can trust. It's to go and see somebody like yourself, work with energy, get your diet, get it on net. There is a way around this, and there's a way to transform and overcome this.
That's right. Hope is the biggest and the most important thing in the world.
Well, look, Pradeep, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. And I know your clinic is in Dublin.
Correct?
Isn't that right? Do you have a number that you want to give out that if anybody wants to contact you to chat, to set up an appointment?
Yeah, I'm working from home these days.
Okay.
My number is 087 410 4123.
Okay, so I'll make sure I put that underneath the clip when I put it up as well, Pradeep, because you know there's some people out there who do struggle, and I would advise people to contact you. As I said, my own experience was very positive when my mom passed away at a time, and thank you for that. It was really helpful. You know, it was something very positive I found to really be very helpful for me for sure. And I would advise people certainly that if they find themselves in that dark space, like you said earlier, Pradeep, that there is hope, there is a way around, and you know. Yeah, the number is there. Just give Pradeep a quick call, and I know he can help you.
And my website is www.drpkchadha. These are my initials.
Yeah,
Dr. PK Chadha.
I-
drpkchadha.com. That's it.
Yeah, and I'll put those details underneath that as well if they're wrong.
Thank
You
you.
might text them to me actually, the exact website thing, and I'll just I'll put them on the bottom of this clip when I save and get it up probably tomorrow.
I'm going to do it right now. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Listen, Pradeep, it's an absolute pleasure again to chat to you, and we'll try and do this a little bit more often. And if people have any questions that they want to, you know, put to us, we can do that.
Certainly.
You know, if we'll chat again, and who knows, maybe we'll get some people to come on and do some more chats with people who might have issues and maybe find some solutions for them just to help them in this particular time. You're a busy man, I know that, and I know you have a very busy practice, Pradeep. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and please stay safe, and we wish you and your family a happy and healthy summer.
Thank you, and same to you, Michael.
Okay, chat to you soon, Pradeep. Talk to you
All
soon.
the best.
God bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.